the short link, bit.ly. So you can type bit.ly/subscribe_KXVS_YouTube. So bit.ly/subscribe_KXVS_YouTube. That's easy enough, right, Donovan? Donovan's a silent minority.
Speechless.
I'm trying to get my accent right. Hold on. I'm just throwing over it in my head. Let me start. Hold on. Yeah, hold on. How to do it? All right. I don't know about you guys, but I'm gonna go subscribe to this new channel. It sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Yo, what's different about this channel than the last one?
Well,
what's changed?
Well, we're making some changes. We're always doing something new, but this is something that we had to do this, and we've had to do this for a while. So this new channel, it's really not much different, except the channel will be different. So all our new content is going on the channel, and we're going to migrate all our videos over to that channel as well, and we won't be using the old channel. So if you're waiting on that channel, you'll be missing it. So please do subscribe to our new channel, and it's real easy. Follow us on Facebook, thevoiceofstockton.org. You can find us everywhere. Keep watching us on our live streams, but that's it. We just wanted to break in and tell you that.
And let's make Stockton better together.
That's right. Make Stockton better together. All right. So you know what? Let's start this track over because this is the best bomb song. And thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you. KXVS, the Voice of Stockton, with Donovan and Mr. Details, Dustin Breakwell. This is Governor Don signing off.
My name is Miriam, and I am the voice of Stockton.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Word of Mouth with your host, Jasmine Leek. Here's Jasmine.
Hey, thanks, Dustin.
No problem.
All right, happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to Word of Mouth, a show all about Stockton and what's happening in our city. Tonight, we'll be talking all about the things you'll probably only hear about by word of mouth here in our city, and that's how we got the name of our show. Just to recap the last couple of shows that we've had some really interesting guests, and tonight is going to be no different. So far, we've talked all about history with Philip Merlo and the arts with some great folks from Placeholder Magazine like Aida Lizalde and Garrett Daniels. And so I just want to remind all of you that you can go back and watch all of these shows again. They are recorded. You can catch them at KXVS Facebook page and I believe on YouTube, right, Dustin?
Yes, you can.
Awesome. So if you missed our first couple of shows, don't fret. You can always go back and watch them again. And pretty timeless content on there too. So this is our third episode. I'm excited to share that we have some really awesome guests tonight. Dr. Nancy Huante and Jasmine Dellafosse. They're two educators, community builders, and women of Stockton who both work with South Stockton Schools Initiative, an education policy organization here in Stockton. So our guests will join us in about 10 minutes because we have quite a lot of questions for them, and there's a lot of really good stuff that they're working on, and we want to make sure to give them plenty of time to talk about it. So just a reminder, why are we doing this show? Why now? And just want to remind everyone, sometimes it's hard to get the word out about things in Stockton, and I know there's so much going on in this city, and people, I hear all the time, like, there's nothing going on, and I'm just like, I want to prove all those people wrong.
There's a lot going on.
There's so much. So
too much sometimes.
Yeah, and actually, just want to let you know if you have any questions for us or if you have story ideas or anything like that, please send those to us. You can send them to me directly at wordofmouth@thirdcity.co. Or you can leave us comments on the Facebook page. We'll be monitoring it as we're live on our show tonight. And or you can send us a message or something like that. You can always reach me. Oops.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's all right. Technical difficulties.
Yeah, somebody had the computer turned up, so I'm monitoring. By the way, yeah.
Yeah, it's all good. So what have you been up to this last weekend?
Ooh, what have I been up to the last weekend? Actually, it's like my first weekend off in a while, so I just relaxed again.
Nice.
I know. I do that sometimes. I binge watch some new shows on Netflix. So.
Like what?
There's this show called Manhunt of people like, the Unabomber. It's about the Unabomber, so it's really good. Discovery did it, I guess. But all these great actors. Sam Worthington played the profiler who caught the Unabomber. It's 8 episodes long, so you can do it in basically 2 days or 1 day. And it's a good show. A lot of great actors, and it was fascinating how they went from they followed the profiler.
Yeah.
And Ted Kaczynski's relationship, and that's how they made the show.
Sounds like I'm gonna be spending some time.
Yeah, it's called Manhunt.
That's always my dilemma, is like binge watching shows and sleeping. You know, because like I work.
You sleep, Jasmine Leek?
I do sleep.
Wow.
Yeah, anyone could ask Jordan. He'd probably be like, "Yeah, she sleeps."
Okay.
Not as much as I probably should, but So the last time we had our show, we were talking about the Transformative Climate Communities meeting, and we held that meeting. It was 2 Tuesdays ago.
Yeah, it was 2 Tuesdays ago.
Yeah, I can't believe it. Time has been going by so fast.
I was working that night. I was mad, but I heard was the food good at least?
The food was great. We had John's Deli.
Yeah.
Catered. And
nice.
They were amazing, as usual. And we had about 70 people attend the meeting, which I thought was pretty great for a Tuesday night with not a lot of notice. And even better, we had great discussions at the meeting, and I'm really excited to see what comes out of that. I know that there's going to be a lot more work going along with that process, and so very excited to see what comes out of that, and want to see a lot more participation for sure. So people can definitely stay in touch with us. It's actually on the Third City Facebook page if anyone wants to learn more about that and get in touch with me about that particular project. I definitely encourage it. We've got a couple great grant writers that are local to the area that are writing this narrative about what it will mean to transform our community, and very excited about that. And then we also held the Tuliberg Press fully booked event. That was so much fun. There were about 280, almost 300 people there that night, and raising money for literacy in this book arts center in the heart of downtown Stockton, and really focusing on publishing local writers and getting local writers interested in sharing their story. And so that was a great event. It was sold out. What a success. And so, but the last couple days for me have been on the road. That's why my voice is kind of gone. I was in Seattle for a couple of days, and it was beautiful. I almost didn't want to come home.
Did you listen to grunge music?
I listened to some really funky, cool, like New Orleans jazz.
They do have that up there.
Yeah.
They have that's actually silently, but one of the best places in America where a lot of great musicians are born.
I'm not surprised.
Become famous, yeah.
Well, I am totally blanking on what they call it when you're like a street performer. There's a name for it, and there were some excellent street performers. People, doing, performances, but also and then in addition to music performances. Yeah. So, and it was interesting because shout out to Mariah. I posted a video of this one band, and she messaged me and said, "Oh my gosh, I know that person. That person used to date my sister." And so it was kind of a small world, and just reminded me, how small the world is and how people in Stockton know people all over the world.
Seattle's a very underrated city, in the United States.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
I loved it there.
Yeah, this tech conglomerates up there. Amazon started up there. All these big, crazy famous people and other businesses are from Seattle.
Yeah, and so I went for an urban manufacturing conference through this group called Seattle Made. They hosted it with the Urban Manufacturing Alliance, and their goal is really to support light industrial makers and small scale makers to different resources available, whether it's like local resources or a national kind of resource for helping people scale up. And I think that, the thing that I loved about Seattle and the thing that I learned from the people that I got to speak with was they really do focus on, they're intentional about supporting these smaller groups, smaller makers, so that they can grow and expand and become things like Amazon.
Yeah.
And
Starbucks.
And
Microsoft.
Exactly. Yeah. And no matter how you feel about those companies now, they're producing revenues for this country that are supporting major initiatives. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, all these crazy famous businesses are in Seattle.
Yeah, it was really interesting. So I had a really great time, and came home very late on Friday night.
How was the flight?
The flight was relatively quick.
Yeah.
And, I flew Alaskan Air. I'm going to plug Alaskan Air right now. They were amazing. Love that airline.
Yeah, they're a good airline.
It was great. I had a great trip.
From Sacramento,
I really needed it too.
You flew from out of Sacramento, or?
I flew out of Sac, yeah.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, I really needed the trip. Long week last week. And so, I was happy to be home. As soon as I got home, I just went boom, 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 meeting after meeting yesterday and today. So
were you also a tourist there too?
I was totally a tourist.
Yeah.
I have so many photos. And I
go to Pike's Place.
I went to Pike's Place.
Did you see the fishermen throwing the fish?
They threw the fish, yes.
It's crazy how big those things are.
Well, I almost missed it because I thought I had gotten through the whole market, and I didn't realize that it goes on for a ways actually. So I almost missed the iconic entrance. I almost missed that, and I almost missed the throwing of the fish. But I had backtracked. I walked through their downtown, and me, I was like stunned by all the architecture.
Too. Yeah.
Gosh, it's gorgeous.
They have a TV studio that you could like walk up and see them doing the live news broadcast from.
Anyway,
I think it's King 4 or something like that.
We've been going on and on about Seattle, and our show is supposed to be about Stockton.
It's about Stockton, yeah.
Stockton, take notes. There's some great things happening in Seattle, and I'm excited about it, and I think that there's a lot of things we can learn about what they're doing, and some things that maybe we could probably stay away from too. But nonetheless, I got home and I was downtown yesterday, and I could hear like blues music from the waterfront, and it was warm here, and it
was 90 yesterday.
I was happy to be home. I was happy to be home. So we're going to take a very, very short break and go grab our guests, Dr. Nancy Huante and Jasmine Dellafosse, who are going to be talking to us about their work. And so stay tuned. Come back in a couple minutes. We'll see you in a few.
One gas lawnmower emits about the equivalent of 40 late model cars? From the Valley Air District, this is your Healthy Air Living Report. Electric mowers are easier to use, lighter, and quieter than gas mowers, with no spills and no emissions. And they work just as well on an average size lawn. Now it's easier than ever to replace your old gas mower with an electric model and get as much as $250 off with Clean Green Yard Machines, the lawnmower trade-in program from the Valley Air District. Just visit the grants section of valleyair.org for program details, an application, and a list of all the participating scrap metal dealers in the San Joaquin Valley where you can turn in your old polluting gas mower. Once you've purchased one of the many eligible electric mowers, send in your receipt, application, and verification that you retired your old gas burner, sit back, and wait for your money. That's valleyair.org. Clean Green Yard Machines. This has been your Healthy Air Living Report from the Valley Air District. Please turn off your engine. From the San Joaquin Valley Air District, this is your Healthy Air Living Report. Motor vehicles are responsible for a majority of valley air pollution, and vehicle idling produces a large amount of unnecessary emissions. Consider shutting off your engine, parking, and entering that restaurant or coffee house instead of going through the drive-thru. And when you're waiting to pick up your kids from school, remember the phrase, turn the key and be idle-free. Making these types of changes will help reduce wear and tear on your engine, save you gas, and save you money. Reaching our air quality goals and protecting public health should be a priority, one that can be achieved when we all work together. This has been your Healthy Air Living Report from the San Joaquin Valley Air District. What is your school doing to protect students from exposure to harmful air pollution? From the Valley Air District, this is your Healthy Air Living Report. The Healthy Air Living Schools program provides participating schools with signs for their parking lots in both English and Spanish, reminding parents not to idle their vehicles when waiting to pick up their children. It also provides schools with the tools needed to receive current air quality information and guidelines for the duration of student outdoor activities based on air pollution levels. Schools can also post current localized air quality information on their own website, further helping protect public health and educating parents about air quality. For more information on how to become a Healthy Air Living school, visit healthyairliving.com and click on Schools. That's healthyairliving.com, Schools. From the San Joaquin Valley Air District, this has been your Healthy Air Living Report.
Do you want to relive the golden days of Stockton? Join Nate Knott on Stockton Alive every first and third Monday at 6 p.m. Tune into thevoiceofstockton.org.
Welcome back to Word of Mouth Live. Here's your host, Jasmine Leek.
Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm here with my guests tonight, Dr. Nancy Huante and Jasmine Dellafosse, and actually we have a special guest in the studio tonight, Miss Kat. Can you wave, Kat? Say hi.
Wave hi.
Kat is Nancy's daughter, and I just love that you brought her with us. She's awesome.
I wanted her to see everything.
Yeah. She does all the work too, huh?
Yeah. She does.
Yeah. So it's probably a good reason why the work is happening too. So we'll get into that. But so welcome back to our show. Tonight we're talking with South Stockton Schools Initiative women leaders, part of the movement to bring educational equity to our Stockton schools. And so, yeah, we'll just get started. We'll jump right in. If you can tell us a little bit about yourselves, tell our audience, you know, what do you love? What inspires you to do this work? And, yeah, why are you working on this in Stockton right now?
All right. Do you want me to go first? Yeah. Okay. So my name is Nancy Huante, and a little bit about myself. So I was born in Mexico, Zacapo, Michoacan, and I was brought over by my family when I was, well, there was 2 times. So when I was a baby, and then again when I was 4 years old. And we've established ourselves here in Stockton, mostly because my grandparents were already here. So they've had some kind of foundation working in the fields and in the warehouses. My grandpa was a bracero, and this was kind of like the region where he established himself. And so when my dad decided to bring us over, Stockton was my other home. Stockton is my home, basically. Mm-hmm. So I grew up here in Stockton. I went to El Dorado Elementary School for a little bit, then to Roosevelt, Fremont, graduated from Franklin in 2003. And then I went away for college for about a good 13 years. So I didn't live in Stockton for that long, but I was always visiting. But I always knew that I wanted to return. I didn't know to do exactly what, but I wanted to come back and figure out how I can help community, especially around education issues. And a lot of the work that I've done has been mostly like mentor programs. So I've always kind of played some kind of role with young people, and then also in the last couple of years with parents and families, and kind of using education as a tool to build a bridge between all these academic and opportunity gaps that we see and that we read about. And so that's kind of like a little bit about me. I don't know how much time I have, but I want to pass it on to Jasmine, and then if I remember something, I'll go back to it.
Awesome.
Sure. Yeah, so my name's Jasmine. Thank you for having us here. I'm so excited. Just a little bit about me is I came into this work when I was at Edison High School. You know, you just experience so many things, and it wasn't until after high school where most of my experiences became more of a reality in terms of that the things that were happening weren't normal. So I come from a Samoan family, very cultural, grew up in the church, grew up with 5 siblings, and so my high school experiences were cool too, because I had a sibling in each grade. My brother was a senior, my sister was a junior, my other sister was a sophomore, and I was a freshman. And so for me, the reason in 2013, I went to Tennessee to visit the Children's Defense Fund and attended a Young Advocate Leadership Training, which I feel like where most of my journey began. And just 2 days ago was was one of my Fannie Lou Hamer's birthday, 100-year birthday. And when I went, one of the things that really stuck out with me was when she says, when I liberate myself, I liberate others. And that if you don't speak out, nobody ain't gonna speak for you. And so for me, this is why this work has become so important for me. And I've kind of moved to make sure that like the work I do is around just equity and liberation for people in the community we live in.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very inspiring. I got goosebumps like 3 times, so that was really great. And I think, you know, when I think about the work that you all are doing, it is so important, and it hasn't, I mean, I want to hear, you know, your thoughts on, you know, how the history, what's the history of the organization? How did it come about? Why did it come about? What are some of the projects that you all have done or are currently working on? And who else is involved in this work on your team?
Right. Sure. So we started back in 2013. What really moved us to begin this work was in 2012, Governor Jerry Brown introduced a new funding formula that would change the way education will look and how districts will spend their money. And so, which is called the local control funding formula. And so when we heard about this, we really felt that this was an opportunity for students and families and stakeholders and residents really to dive in and say that it's time for us to make some educational change. And so our organization was really founded on the idea of how do we make equitable educational change. And one of the quotes that our organization uses is by Baynard Rustin, and we use this in every setting. And it says, we need in every community a group of angelic troublemakers. Our power is in our ability to make things unworkable. The only weapon that we have is in our bodies, and we need to tuck them into places where wheels don't turn. And really, the idea for that was that we want to make sure when we do this, we focus on education policy, and which is something we felt that will really actually change the way we hold districts and stakeholders accountable, at least for education in our communities. But I'll let Nancy take the rest, at least for...
Yeah,
so I'll build a little bit on that. So yes, our premise is policy, for sure. Like looking at what kind of equitable decisions are being made at the state level, local level, and within our communities, really. But I think the other part that really is we try to balance out is figuring out where families are at and how they're understanding equity. How are they seeing the power of education? Do they see the power of education? And then how do we bridge what they're thinking about learning and teaching and learning with this idea, well, this practice of policymaking, right? Legislature, electing the school officials that are going to advocate together with us on equity issues. And then the other important piece, I think, is this idea of highlighting resilience within our community. I think a lot of the time, especially when we're looking at data, we tend to provide a lot of, I guess, context for all the negativity. But I think what Jasmine and I try to do with the parent, family, and student group is really just highlight the way that they're reviving education, reviving their families, and this whole ideology behind education, right? And I think that's, for me, that's my favorite part, is getting to hear parents' stories and seeing how through their stories they move themselves to take action on some of these issues that we talk about around opportunity and achievement gaps in our community and across the state, really. And then one more thing that I want to mention is that we're not resource-based. That makes us very unique, right? We do provide outlets and references for some of the families we work with, but we ourselves do not provide resources. I think we both, and the team itself, we really want to emphasize the power of agency and allowing them to see themselves and the community not just as a resource, but a powerhouse for them to make change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Can you define equity from your perspective? What is that? What does that mean? What does that look like? And we'll start there because I have a few questions about that.
Okay. So I wrote a couple notes, so I think I'm just going to read off my notes.
Go for it.
Then I'm going to leave out stuff. And then, Jasmine, if you want to jump in, please. Sorry, I know this is...
it's
you
okay.
just hear it.
Yeah.
Okay, so equity means pushing for educational justice. It means analyzing at data, focus on equity legislation, so evaluating every policy, practice, and money spent. Partnership with folks who work to improve educational outcomes of our youth and our families in general. It means looking closely at the ed gaps in opportunity and academics by race, class, gender, and sexuality, all the way from pre-K through college. It means also looking at the proven gaps that exist beyond the classroom. So we're thinking about economic and social mobility here. And then connecting those analyses to build better policies, to build better systems of support here in our local community schools. And then equity also means it's vital to analyze and engage with students, to critically think about democracy, and to believe in the strength of democracy. And some of the work that Jasmine is doing currently, I think, speaks a lot to that. And so creating that partnership with civic engagement is one of our key, I guess, purpose for this year, is really reintroducing what does it mean to be civically engaged and to think about democracy within our schools.
Yeah, one of the things when we start defining equity and equality to students, one of the things we really break down is for students at least, we try to reference it to things that they like. And so one of the things we say is equality is saying that everyone gets a new pair of Jordans, but equity is saying that everyone gets a new pair of Jordans that fits them. And so when we tell that to students, they're just like, I get it, you know? And then we start breaking it down into saying, when we begin to think about equity, what does equity look like in schools? Then we break it down to the framework of what does classrooms look like? What classes do you take that are available to you? And then what are not available to you and why? And then also breaking it down to just some of the other structures of barriers that become equity issues, maybe like transportation, right? So if students live 2.7 miles away and can't get a free bus pass but has to wake up as early as 5 o'clock a.m. to leave the house by 6 to be at school by 7:20, then now we're beginning to talk about equity versus equality. And then we think about, it's just an easier opportunity for really to break it down to students and saying equity isn't something that every student deserves equity, and it's unfortunate that we do have to sometimes reclaim these narratives and spaces and policies to make sure that we're meeting these structures of the framework. And for students is until we just kind of educate them and empower them to understand what that really looks like, then we can begin to have meaningful conversations about equity in terms of policy and what does that look like in communities and schools.
Yeah. And how is because there have been many, literacy movements, education movements in the city, how is this different from your perspective? How is it different or the same? And why is that significant, I guess, to what's happening now in the city?
You want to go first?
Sure. I think the really powerful thing about this is that many times we say, I think for us is that we make sure that residents and families are at the table, but not only just being at the table, but really being a part of the decision-making process, ensuring that when we have spaces that it's safe spaces for them, And I'm not saying that other communities or movements have not done this. I think in terms of the idea of moving forward with educational change is that we really begin to dive in with the idea of families determining what are educational issues in our schools. And we don't come in with the idea of saying, this is what is happening in our schools, we need to rally up against these issues. I think we really look at the framework of saying, what is happening in your schools? Because one, students are experiencing these firsthand, and families are also in their households experiencing it as parents and families. And the idea is that for us, that we ensure that they have that space to develop, and we give them the tools and resources really to figure out, how do you become community organizers in your schools? How do you become policy leaders? How do you become just different change agents in their communities? At least for me, it's been just powerful to see students take place in speaking up for policy, because we've seen some folks say, don't talk, let your parents speak for you. This is not your place, this is not your role. And for me, it's very important to make sure that students feel they do have the power, and that they do have the voice to really move the needle forward for Stockton and education and just for the nation, right? I think Nancy will get into a little bit more, but when we talk about A through G, or we talk about school climate and literacy, I think for us, we talk about everything when it comes to policy, and it ends up impacting all in a good way. Eventually.
Just to clarify for people watching, A through G is...
A through G is the graduation requirements needed for a UC or CSU. So that's what that means.
And yeah, did you have other things to contribute?
Ditto. I'm just kidding. No, I really think what makes us unique is that our organization is building on other ed movements that focus on data. Sure, yeah. I think for a long time, even for myself, I just got my doctorate, and a lot of the time, I just thought numbers and statistics belong to a certain group or a certain people, and I didn't think myself as a researcher or someone who can analyze and write and build narratives based on that. And I think that's a really powerful tool that we're using, is understanding that we are researchers, that we are writing our own narratives, and that we have the power to distribute these narratives across our local or state legislature, for example. And I think it's just getting in the practice of that. So there's something that I ask, because I teach at Sac State, and when I talk to the parents, I also ask them, so students at Sac State and parents, I ask them, do you see yourself as a researcher? No one raises their hand. And I think that's problematic, because again, we're thinking about the role of education and the foundation of schools. We're not being allowed to envision ourselves so. And so it takes us so much to break or unlearn that we are not researchers, yet we have to have that practice to investigate, to figure out what are the solutions. We are taught to only have the right answer, and that's it, and that's problematic. So when we think about data, the way that Jasmine and I present this information to parents and students is that we put them in that role of yes, you have the power to analyze, to ask questions about these numbers, to figure out why these numbers are skewed, right? Or what are the stories behind these numbers? That's...
Well, I think that's obviously it's very important for people to kind of, like you said, reclaim their power and speaking up, and especially for students and young people who largely are left out, and it's their experiences on the line here. And I know that this has been mostly a grassroots movement. It's really been from the bottom up, people like yourself really kind of coming around these issues and talking about it. What does it mean for you that it is grassroots and not something that's very top down or kind of a directive? What is that? How does that make it different? What is it, in yourself? What does that mean for you?
Yeah, I think at least for me, it's important that it starts with families and it starts with students. Really, we have this little diagram that we use about who holds the decision-making process, and it's really cool because it starts off with students and it starts off with principals and parents, and then we talk about the school board leaders, and then we talk about the California State Board of Education, and then we talk about the federal Department of Education. And so for us, is that until we can move and mobilize and empower our families and students to understand how these are our realities, then we can really get to this movement of moving people to understand that.
Yeah. And it seems to me like it's just going to last longer. It's a longer lasting movement because it's coming from the people who are experiencing it versus like, you know, the school board kind of, I don't know. I mean, I just feel like it's much more powerful. That's just from my perspective. I've been following along for a while now, and I think it's, I think it really speaks to, you know, I know, Nancy, you and I have talked a lot about just some of the highlights of your work and some of the accomplishments. And actually, that's our next question anyways, is, you know, what is your proudest moment in doing all of this work? But I know that, I would love to have you tell me, you know, what is your proudest moment? What are you most proud of?
I think for me, so we do a series of workshops around accountability. Those moments and spaces have been my favorite because I've been able to listen more. Because, you know, I can go off reports and things I read online and numbers, but when I'm there with the parents, I hear stories. And for me, that's like my favorite part because, you know, they get to tell me what their vision for schools is, what their proudest moments are within their schools, and what they would like to see change. And all of that just adds meat to the things that I'm reading offline, either in very academic terms or very complicated language. Like, it just brings that human aspect, and it also brings the concept of social justice, right? I mean, they don't talk about it they don't say social justice, but everything that they're talking about is in reference to what we know as social justice, right? Educational justice. So I think for me, those workshops are my favorite. And then obviously the one-to-ones when they come and they talk to me, or they bring me cake, or, you know, or they see me at the flea market, and it's like somebody that I relate, you know, I have a relationship. So I guess relationships in general and stories are like my favorite part of doing this type of work.
Yeah. What about you, Jess?
Yeah, I think definitely the same thing. I think for me, it's every day has become some proud moments, even the good and the bad. I think there's times when I hear students just really, I think my proudest moments is when students feel comfortable enough to share their experiences and realities with us. And I think it's very difficult sometimes to open up, and so relationships definitely is key. We have some of the mothers who Nancy works with, and moms would bring me cherries, and they'll bring me food and invite us to their kids' birthday parties in their homes, and I think that's just so beautiful. Another thing we do that are proud moments for me is we do community action projects. So we use the capstone model really for students to figure out how can you be a better, what can you do to improve your community by creating these action plans, which led into beautification efforts with parks, or which led to building a brand new playground with Kaboom back in 2016. I think for me those were very proud moments to know that people say why parks or why public spaces, but it's a crucial piece to education and literacy for children. One of the things we also say that First Five has really moved on was play as an indicator to helping children learn to read. And so for us, it's by creating those spaces for families and students, we give them access to those pieces that they need to be able to grow and reach their highest potential. And so for me, proud moments are when I see kids playing outside and using public spaces, because so often our kids for a time were stuck in houses because parents didn't feel it was safe enough. And so it's beyond education, it's beyond it's all layered together. And so that's why these issues are so powerful to me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a connectedness kind of a person in general, so I see the just how interwoven all of these things are. And when you talk about, I mean, I remember the park project and how powerful that was for community, really to build that all together. It was a really fun project, and cool to see it come to life. And I haven't been there actually since in a while. I need to go down there.
We actually have a nice little shade thing that covers the playground, so too hot. The sun
awesome.
It.
That's wonderful. And so conversely, I'm going to ask, because I face challenges all the time, literally every day. What's been the biggest challenge that you all have had to deal with or are currently dealing with? I don't know if it's something you've moved past. You've been in this work for about 4 years now, so what's been the biggest challenge or hurdle?
I think for me in the parent work is building trust. So I always, going back to what Jasmine was saying about who has power, that diagram that we have and we present to them, they, myself included, right? We're trying to relearn trust in our communities with city officials, board members, teachers, counselors, etc. So there's just a lot of work behind the scenes on like how do we build trust and how do we get creative with building trust, which is why now I'm kind of transitioning to using more art in the work that I do as a way to also capture engagement but then also build trust, and hopefully there's stories flourishing through those modes of like using art as a tool in educational discussion about equity. So for example, one of the things that I'm gonna have parents do is write their own books, write their own children's book. So at the end of the workshop series in March, they should all have their own version of a children's book, where they get to write on whatever topic in relationship to education and equity. So I'm very excited to see kind of that roll out and be developed. And then the other part is something that I've new, I guess, is Noche de Cultura, which I'm going to talk a little bit later, but that I borrowed from Mecha. So that's what we used to have in terms of like regaining trust within community and breaking bread, thinking about time together as community through art space. So Noche de Cultura I'm really excited about. So thank you, Mecha, for introducing me to Noche de Cultura when I was in undergrad. So I'm going to utilize that with parents and see, and families, so youth, young people are going to go to Dia de los Muertos. And so I'm looking forward to that as well.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. But trust, yeah, that's the big theme.
Biggest challenges? Gosh, there's so many.
Right.
Yeah, I think to begin with, the first biggest challenge was just getting families and parents to trust again, for sure, because we heard from parents and families, we've done this, we spoke out, we poured our hearts out, and nothing has changed. So just thinking about the different approaches. And so one of the things for us is, at least for myself, is how do we move from the traditional ways of doing things to more non-traditional ways in terms of how we engage with families, how do we talk with families, how do we move people, and even just about even how the pedagogy of how we teach, and just like work together with families. I think I like to take a different approach at least in terms of what they're used to. So some of the challenges are getting over those hurdles and people adapting to some of these non-traditional ways, whether that be like having community dinners. Like when we have our community dinners, families like they're just eating and they're like, do we talk about these issues? Do we talk at the table? And so bringing those values back into our homes and into our schools have been a challenge, but also been such a great eye-opener in terms of how much work we need to do more. Getting people to show up to school board meetings and feeling safe enough to speak without being targeted, I think for me has been a challenge for students to feel safe enough to go into these spaces, or whether it be other public spaces, but they do show up and they are resilient. The idea is, how do we move that to more families and students to support and wrap their arms around them.
Yeah. So what is the one thing that, is the most pressing issue that no one is really talking about in regards to this particular issue, whether it's educational equity or policy or anything related to the work that you're doing? Because it might be uncomfortable, or because it's unknown, or there's not enough data, or whatever reason.
I think for the parent and family group, it's been A through G, what Jasmine mentioned earlier. Just on Friday, I was at Henry Elementary, which is out on the east side of Stockton, and I gave a mini data equity walk, which is a small presentation where I bring posters of how our district is doing and how our county is doing compared to state education test scores. So like, the testing they do at the end of the year, and then also their completion rates around A through G and high school graduation, etc. So I showed them basically the numbers around A through G, and a lot of them did not know what A through G were, and there was about 25 parents in there. The majority did not know that A through G was a different pathway, and that they had to advocate for themselves if they wanted to take that pathway. They also mentioned that for about half of the room, they had kids in high school already, and they didn't know if their kids were A through G. So if they were taking the coursework that was going to allow them to just apply to the university, right?
Right.
That's huge. It holds a lot of power to know what is A through G, if your kids are in A through G. And so the conversation that came out is like, well, how do we get parents to know about A through G? And how do we change it so that it's default? Because they asked, well, wouldn't it just make sense to have them go through A through G anyways? Instead of having them instead of having them separate. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to be smart, but
so a few of the parents asked that, and they were like, how do we get the question that gets me happy, right? How do we move forward so that our schools can be A through G? They didn't say A through G for all, but that's what they're going towards. So that gets me very excited, because I worked on an A through G for all campaign in San Diego while I was at San Diego State doing my master's. And yes, there's a lot of opposition, mostly because they don't believe in the students. That's really one of the reasons. They're saying they don't want to see failure, but students are failing already. And it's not because they don't want to learn or they don't want to be there. It's because they just don't have leaders that believe in them. That's the first issue.
Yeah.
And it's true. It's real. I've been in the lounge for teachers. I've been in places where I'm meeting with principals, and they straight out say, we don't think they can do it, therefore we're not going to push for that. Yet they haven't been given the opportunity. And I think that's the biggest issue around equity, is that we are making choices for our students, and we're not looking directly at what our students want. And obviously what our families want. And every family that I talk to, they say they want they want their kids to be career and college ready, even if they decide they don't want to go to college. But at least they have the tools to analyze, to be engaged, and to make decisions further down the road.
Right, and to choose. Because I think that's really, from my perspective, that's what liberation is being able to choose for yourself what makes the most sense, as opposed to someone else deciding for you and you being, like, not allowed to talk about it or not invited to the conversation.
Exactly.
So what about you, Jess?
A through G, for sure.
And A through G definitely is one here in Stockton that I hope we can begin to talk a little bit more and explore more about. I mean, there's so many. There's third grade literacy. There's preschool enrollment.
I feel like third grade literacy is something we beat over with a dead horse, like beat a dead horse with. Like, I feel like I hear all about literacy. I mean, no, but like, but the A through G requirement. I mean, what is the other pathway? I mean, what are the other pathways? Just not like you don't go to college, or
so
help me to understand that.
Yeah, so there's been some studies shown in Stockton, so I know for Stockton Unified at least, it was only 35% of students were A through G eligible. It didn't mean that they were all accepted into university, didn't mean that they were competitive enough to compete, but it did mean that they graduated at least eligible to apply, which means that it leaves the rest of the students either left to vocational schools, junior colleges, or just into the workforce. And we just want to ensure that students have the choice to make sure that, like, they decide and can choose, yes, I graduated high school career and ready, right? That college and career ready. But it's just providing them the tools. Most of them we see now are just in the workforce, right? And we want to ensure that, and some of them do, like, I had a senior last year who, I met him his senior of the year. I said, let me see your transcript. We pulled it. And then he was like, I don't want to go to college. And then like maybe 3-4 weeks later, we had another conversation and he's like, okay, I would have wanted to go to college if I knew I was supposed to take these courses. And so I don't believe any student says they don't want to go to college or be career ready. I think every student wants that, but we become defeated, and we want to put this mask on that we don't want it, and I think every student wants that. And so that conversation that I had with him, he was a foster care student, and just even standards for foster care students are a lot lower too. Like they can take less credits to be eligible to graduate, at least high school. And it's like, can we set some high standards? Because I know our students, when we say run and meet us at the finish line, they've always done that.
Yeah.
And they can do that when we push them and say that there's a community and a village that really supports and believes in them. Our students can do some amazing things. Like I'm not surprised actually when they do things, and it's until we create those spaces and believe in them. I think another big issue for me, at least, is around school climate, and just understanding, like, when we say school climate, what does that mean? And when we define practices and policies, what is restorative justice, and what does that truly mean, and what does that truly look like, in how we operate, whether that be in schools or communities. I would love to just figure out how we can bring less punitive ways of discipline into and changing that. And I think for most folks it's just really touchy, like, don't talk about that, don't bring that up. But I think it's super important, because when we talk about being college and career ready, or just able to compete in the workforce, it's that we have built these barriers for students to reach their highest potential. And it's because of punitive ways, and it's because of leadership, and it's because of how we've created these structures for students to exist. And I really would like to look into better restorative practices. But the district has gone into some great ways with ethnic studies, and and bringing courses that students can identify with in schools and practices. So I'm confident and hopeful in what we'll do in the future.
That's good.
If I can, I just want to plug in. So these patterns that we see in Stockton are very relatable to what we're seeing at the state level, and really in conversations across the nation. So I'm going to read off. So I gather a lot of my information through Ed Trust West. Their reports are amazing. So shout out to Ed Trust West in Oakland, which is a nonprofit organization that looks at equity and policy specifically. But I want to kind of recap on like what do we have available for us in Stockton, and how do we maneuver, how do we play with those, right, in ways that are going to be transformative for young people and for families and for community members at large, right? Because we are going to see the investment down the road. So I want to just think about that for a little bit. So this is the third year of SBAC, which is the testing they have at the end of the year for a lot of students. It's the 7th year since the state adopted the Common Core standards. So we have this new curriculum, this new teaching expectation, and this new way of seeing units of study. However, improvement has slowed dramatically. So half of the students met standards in English language arts, and in 5th grade, English language arts scores decline. Math has minimally improved. 3/4 of Latino students are not meeting standards in math, and more than 2/3 of African American students are not meeting standards in ELA or math. Even more problematic are the gaps for English language learners. Those appear to be widening in math and language arts. And so we have made this great policy, right? California has adopted this great policies. We're seeing the shift, but we are not providing the ongoing supports. And I think that's, for me, one of the key things is like, how do we build support? So we build these policies, so how do we continue to work out what does it mean to support students now that we have these new shifts in policy? How do we make those those practice shifts? And so looking at the numbers, looking at the great policy changes, we have a lot of work to do, because it's not enough to just write up new policy. So we have to connect those things, policy and practice, and also our theories of education. And like Jasmine said, we have examples of good work being done through ethnic studies, for example, or even like the LCAP, right, is a huge success, because, and the ESSA policy, which is the Every Student Succeeds Act, that is forcing us to engage families. Like, it's written in the paperwork. It's one of their main priorities. So we have all these things that are tangible and that will allow us to work through, and that shows us that basically the opportunity gaps and academic gaps is more about choices than circumstances. It reminds us that there's work to do around equity. So there's just this urgency to recommit, to collaborate, to partner, to get rid of all the baggage that we've had in the past, and to really think about how do we move forward, even when things do become very problematic. Because I'm not going to say it's going to be like super happy, we're going to work and collaborate. But I think that if we work and collaborate and listen to each other, even if we don't agree with each other, that will give us at least space to kind of like work through some of what we're thinking. And so Audre Lorde, a lot of Chicana feminists, they talk about the practice of listening. I think we're at that moment where we're really challenging ourselves to listen, and then moving forward, right? So yeah.
Can we go back really quick? Just for people who may be listening that don't know about the LCAP, can you explain what that stands for and what it is?
Okay. And Jasmine, you can chime in, because sometimes I leave stuff out. So LCAP is actually the plan, so local control accountability plan, that the district has to write out every 3 years, but revised every year. And that came out of the policy, which is the local control funding formula. So there's the policy that says you have to do engage parents. You have to think about school climate. There's 8 priorities in total.
Right.
But then the plan is, it's kind of like how to do all these 8 priorities, and where do you invest money for these 8 priorities.
Got it. Yeah, that's what I wanted to make sure they know. And how does, well, yeah, it'll probably get us into, we have about 15 minutes, and I want to be able to talk about some of the things that you already touched on about how people can support. And so tell us about, you have an upcoming event coming up. You talked about it a little bit for Dia de los Muertos. It's going to be at the Mexican Heritage Center, right? Or
no?
Oh, sorry.
At the Huddle.
Oh, at Huddle. Okay.
Yeah.
That's right. You know what it was? Later in the show, I'll be talking about Dia de los Muertos. They're having a thing at the Mexican Heritage Center. So, anyhow, so tell us about the concept of that, how that came about, and what is the vision? What are you hoping to get out of that?
Yeah, so a little bit more about the parent work first, just to give context on why Noche de Cultura, right? So the Parent Ambassador Program, which is what we call our parent piece for our Stockton Schools Initiative, is really like there's 4 ways of engaging, right? If you're a parent and you want to know more about policy, you can come to our Accountability Champion workshops, which this year will be a series of 9 workshops between October and May. And we're going to be breaking down some of the policies I talked about and the data that I talked about here today. The other way of getting involved is Noche de Cultura, which is really the kind of the invitation in on community dinners and also community reflection through arts and culture. And then the other piece is Parent Council, Parent Empowerment Council. This is something new. We're only on our 2nd meeting, but we meet every first Thursday and last Thursday of the month. And these parents have decided just recently that they're going to focus on A through G. And they're going to really dig deep into the research behind A through G, and then kind of begin to roll out a plan on how they want to tackle the issue, and then provide solutions and have conversations with the district about A through G. And then the last component of parents, the way parents can get engaged, is advocacy opportunities. So going to meetings, district meetings, and then also going to the state capitol to talk to legislators about education and equity, and then also State Board of Education meetings, which my first time was last semester. I got my doctorate in education, and I've never gone to a State Board of Education meeting. It's another world, but it was very informative and like important, right? Again, civic engagement, and these are folks who are making huge decisions around schools, and you know, it trickles down to impact us. So Noche de Cultura is kind of like the fun aspect, I want to say, and really tapping into like our creative side. Thinking about, I decided to start with Dia de los Muertos just because I want to honor, it's another way of honoring like the work that has been done. Those who have passed or those who have moved, but really having an opportunity to honor a special someone or a special organization. And so that's kind of like the theme behind Dia de los Muertos. It is going to be a Sugar Skull workshop. So Soul Collective, so shout out to Soul Collective. They're going to be visiting the Huddle and hosting the Sugar Skull workshop. So they will have pre-made sugar skulls and decoration, things, you know, stuff to decorate. But then they're also going to bring molds, and we're going to have the opportunity, some of us will have the opportunity to make our own sugar skulls and then letting them dry, and you'll be able to take them home the next week or so. But I'm really excited. Soul Collective has been a very special place for me around Chicano art and Chicano spoken word, and just understanding myself, my identity, right? Identity politics and who I am and what vision do I hold. And so I feel like our community is hungry for that. We live it and breathe it every day, but it's about creating more spaces where they can come and share some of what they're thinking around identity and around who they are and the visions that they hold for Stockton. And so Chicano art through El Dia de los Muertos, I thought I'd start there and then kind of shift focus depending on what other folks want to see. But in December, our second Noche de Cultura is going to be December 13th or 15th. December 15th. And that one's going to be on spoken word, resilience and transformation through spoken word. And so we're actually in the process of inviting Tama and the group. And then also bringing Yosimar Reyes, who's a queer, undocumented person of color who speaks to that experience, to do poetry here in Stockton. I'm very excited because I've never seen him live, so he's considering coming to Stockton.
Cool.
Yeah.
Come to Stockton.
Yes.
Come check it out.
Yes.
That's awesome. Are you involved in the organization of the event and all of that, or are you working on any other projects for people to come get involved in?
Yeah, so there's a few. We definitely do collaborate on mostly everything. And we couldn't do this work if there is no collaboration. So we do have one. We also, ours is going to be a trunk or treat.
Oh yeah, that's right. I saw that.
We're going to have a trunk or treat at Edison High School. Woo woo, E-House. A little biased because I went to Edison. No, I'm just kidding. So October 31st, from 4:30 to 4:30 to 6:30, we're hosting a trunk or treat event. We started back 3 years ago. At the time, we were realizing that no one was going trick-or-treating in their neighborhoods. One, because we started asking families, they're like, oh, we didn't feel like it was safe enough. No one gives out candy out here. No one does anything out here. And so for us, it was like, let's make sure that we give children and families the opportunity to experience these, because why should they not?
Right.
And so we'll be hosting that. It's free and open to everyone in the community. I'm really, really excited. We'll have performances and jumpers and candy and resource booths and all that stuff. And usually every second Friday we host a Young Changemakers kickback. Yeah. So that started, we were calling it a mixer and all these other things, and the kids are like, that's so old. We don't, what is a mixer? And I'm like, so what do you want to call it? They're like, a kickback. We're like, oh, okay. I'm like, I don't know what a kickback is, but I mean, I do, but.
That's awesome. So you're speaking their language.
Yeah, the idea for our Young Changemakers kickback is really to invite young people, one, who've never been exposed to what does it mean to be involved or civically engaged, and others is to share the work that people are doing. So if kids are saying, here, we're running a sports program, they'll know, hey, we're running some education policy, advocacy work, come do this. It's a way for young people to really to be in the same space and collaborate and talk about what does it mean to be change makers in your communities.
Yeah.
So we usually do that. There's a lot of we'll be doing college applications this whole month into November for seniors. We'll have office hours open for students, which we'll share later with you. Maybe you can just post it, of students who are applying to college. So we'll do personal statements. We have alumni who's gone from colleges from all over, and we have folks from UOP who partner with us to read applications and help support students in their essays. So we'll be doing a lot up until December. Those will be some of our priorities, so that we can ensure our kids are getting into there and doing it before the deadline.
Yeah. Yeah, it comes up quick, so.
Yeah.
So that actually leads me to kind of my last questions. You know, I know some of the things that you're working on, some of the programs are really geared towards parents who are affected by some of the work that you're all doing, but how can other people, like, you know, I don't have a child, and I do live in Stockton Unified School District, but how can other people support that are, you know, from different communities in Stockton that maybe are not already exposed to this, either directly or indirectly? What kind of additional support? I mean, I heard you say about college applications, maybe you could get some mentor readers and people who can edit or revise essays and things. But what else? What other ways?
I think for me, if you're passionate about a specific topic and you want families to know about it and you want to reach out and organize a workshop, I'd be down to collaborate.
Cool.
Something that you're really passionate about, you know, or organizations, individuals, what have you. The other way, share out, like our page on Facebook. Right now our website is under construction. So Facebook, we've been using as a source to kind of let people know what what's coming up, reminders, how to get involved. So like our page on Facebook, and then share this information. And community event, I mean, I think that even if you don't have children, like I said earlier, whatever we're investing in our communities, like we're gonna see that down the road, right? So if it's school is, I feel like has a transformative power to change communities around economic development, civic engagement. So I feel like getting involved, helping youth, if helping youth is something that you're interested, or maybe you want to work directly with families, I'd say come by the workshops for, the workshops that we have for parents, or even, showcasing some of the essays or the applications, coming by, just introducing yourself. I think a lot of families want to know what people do in Stockton, aside from, what they normally know. Like, for example, I grew up thinking of work in warehouses because that's what my parents do. They work for many generations. A lot of my family members work in warehouses. And so to tap into these other areas was difficult. We always felt like we needed to leave Stockton to go to cultural events or to, hang out, to visit other museums or what have you. So I think just seeing them gain a larger perspective of what folks are doing, especially now with all these huge projects, that a lot of people are doing. People coming back to Stockton who've recently gotten their degrees, in law, and who've gotten their degrees around social work, all these areas, right? I feel like families would really benefit from seeing your lovely faces.
Come out and support. What about you, Jazz? What do you think?
Yeah, really quick. It would be one for same thing, to invite us to the spaces. We're willing to help share information. How do you have these conversations in your churches, in your schools, in your groups? Number one is really just, if you don't know something, ask somebody about it. Really just educating ourselves about the issue first is important. And another thing, how can you be involved, whether it be directly or indirectly? This might be more indirectly, is ask students how they are. Check in with them. Just ask them, how are you doing today? Those simple gestures, I can tell you, can definitely change a child in a good way. The wellness of them. Another thing is, if you want to host a trunk at my trunk or treat, hit up Jasmine.
That's a good idea.
You must bring your own candy and stuff.
Bring your own candy, decorate your own car. Yeah. So if you want to do that, other way, yes, college applications. Share, obviously, and then truly just, even if you don't want to add anything to a conversation, just show up to an event or a workshop, and it all just starts off with showing up, and that be in our workspaces, our schools, wherever that be. But for sure, check in on your students, on a student you see, your neighbors. At least for now, that would be one way to get involved.
Yeah, on that note, when the whole Defend DACA thing was happening, and still happening, but when you had that panel, I think it was really powerful. There were a lot of people in the room, and it's important. So I can definitely say, as I went, and I thought it was just unbelievable, some of the things that I heard. I went home and cried, quite frankly, because it's just horrible. But it also is a good reminder. It serves as a good reminder that we still have a lot of work to do, and that there's a need for more people to speak up and support each other, and like you said, check in and just be there for each other. That's what building community is all about. So, So how can people reach you? Like, if people have questions for you and want to learn more about the work, or maybe make a donation to the work, can people do that? Can people donate, you know,
think so, right?
to the cause? Yeah. And
we didn't share who was part of the team.
Yeah, who else is on the team?
So Jesus Andrade is the director of the initiative, and then I have someone who helps me with parent organizing. Her name's Ileana Huante. She's my sister. So she's amazing. She's been doing amazing. I haven't slapped her yet. Just kidding.
I was gonna say my sister might get a little tense in the family, but
no, it's been awesome working with her. And then she's a nice person, anyways. I like her a lot. She's amazing. She has a lot of energy. I don't have that much energy sometimes. And then Chauncey, right? You wanna?
Well, no.
Temporarily.
Yeah.
We have a lot of volunteers.
A lot of volunteers.
I facilitate a lot of the student work. And who else is on the team are like hundreds of high school kids who show up.
And Kat.
And Kat,
wherever she went,
she jammed out.
Yeah, so I mean, we have a good team and folks who truly support and now see the vision of what does educational change really look like. In our schools and in our community. So yeah.
So if you want to get a hold of us online, Facebook, South Stockton Schools Initiative, like our page, and definitely a lot of postings around upcoming events. If you want to have a more direct conversation, I'll go ahead and share my information. So my number is 209-670-5584. And my email, nwante.ub@gmail.com. That's the best way. Gmail is the best way for me. So yeah, you can get a hold of us there. Okay, and then Jasmine, you want to share your information?
So yes, you can definitely reach us on South Stockton Schools Initiative Facebook. You can message us. We will respond quickly. My email is like super long to give out, so like I feel like I'll just tell Jasmine to type it up.
Yeah, I'll share it out. And so people can read. Is email the best way to reach you both?
Totally,
basically.
And if you want to get a hold, 209-507-5609.
You're both very responsive, I've noticed. So, okay, cool. Well, any last thoughts before we jump into what's going on in the next week and 2 weeks? There's so much going on.
I know there's a lot going on. I think for me, just remember education as a tool of like transformation. That's what I think I take away. And that's not just bias because I got a doctorate in education. I just really feel like education has opened my point of thinking in many directions, and it has challenged me a lot too, to think about these other areas of life. So that's why we need to work hard to invest in our education. So.
Well, help me out if I forget anything. I feel like a lot of the things that are happening in the next week, I actually don't really have anything for this week. I feel like there's a lot of like small private meetings and things like that. But I know on Saturday there's a forum at Health Plan of San Joaquin in French Camp. I don't know if either of you two will be there, but the topic is women's rights in the 21st century. And there's some really great speakers there, including Kimberly Ellis is coming into Stockton. So I'm really excited about that. If you're interested in learning more about that, I'll be sharing out information on our word of mouth page. Also on Saturday, there's a couple of other things. There's a public art walking tour through downtown. Starts at 4 p.m. and it's put on by the Downtown Stockton Alliance. And the 1850 Collective is hosting their creep show, and it is looking pretty creepy, and I will not be there because I don't like being creeped out. But you should go. It's going to be at Bella Vista at 5 o'clock on Saturday. And anyways, I'm going to be tired, and so I'm going to need to rest up because on Sunday morning we're having our third Jane's Walk in downtown Stockton along the waterfront. It starts at 9 a.m. And so there's a lot to talk about with that, especially the new decision to move the City Hall to downtown waterfront. So if you want to come check it out and learn more. Also that day, there's the Empower Expo. Tashante is holding the Empower Expo at University Plaza at noon. And then Stockton Arts Week is the whole week of October 16th. There's going to be things going on every day throughout the city, which is going to be really exciting. I know the gals at Goodstock are working on
the
5 days of...
straight.
Yeah, 5 days of performances, art competitions, and
right at the
community piano painting. I don't think that they're doing that. I think Downtown Stockton Alliance is doing that, but you can go out and do piano painting. And then the thing that I thought you were talking about earlier was on the 20th is Dia de los Muertos, the opening reception at Mexican Heritage Center, and I will be there for that. That's at 5 o'clock on Friday. And let's see, a couple of other things. On Saturday, the 21st, is a pretty busy day, too. Yes. The Younger Women's Task Force is having our quarterly roundtable. The theme is gearing up for the holidays. It's all about self-care and how to take care of yourself through the holiday. Time is at 10 a.m., and it'll be a 2-hour meeting or workshop. And then Oktoberfest at Channel Brewing will be at 2 o'clock, and finally, the Peace and Light Festival's at 4 p.m.
Wait, can I share?
Oh, yeah, go for it. Yeah, too. go for it.
So October 21st, we are also doing a beautification cleanup at William Brotherhood Park, 2044 Fair Street, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And then also that same day, there's going to be the San Joaquin County health fair, free resource fair.
Oh, yeah.
Partnered with the YMCA, health plan, or General Hospital, and many other hospitals. And so that's also going to be free. They're going to be doing tons of screenings that day. They'll be doing just a lot of health related things that you need. No insurance, like it's dope. Just go. If you need, like, if you haven't gotten anything, I believe they're doing some flu shots and other screenings. Yeah, so that's happening.
The Binational Health Fair, right? Is that what it is? Yeah, you know what? I forgot about that. That's on here. Yeah, that is on the 21st. Yeah, those are great things. So if you want to get involved in community park cleanup, that is basically, I think, how I got involved with all of the work in South Stockton. And, I mean, it was part of that. Yeah, so it's really awesome. And then, actually, I just realized 2 more things. Because our next show is not until Sunday the 22nd at... 7 p.m. Right? We start at 7. The Goonies, one of my favorite favorite movies. It's just in time for the holidays. On the 22nd at Bob Hope Theater. So if you want to go turn up.
I've never seen the Goonies.
Turn out. Oh.
But I hear a lot about it.
Oh my gosh. I almost just kind of can't wait until the 22nd.
Yeah.
I kind of want to go home and watch it right now.
The Fox does an awesome job with that.
Oh, I know. I love that.
They do the old school movies.
And also the movies in the park. I'm obsessed during the summer. Those are my favorite. But the Goonies. And then and then Conversation Over Cocktails. We're doing another Conversation Over Cocktails. We're heading back to Cast Iron Trading Company.
Nice.
It'll be on the 24th. And we do have our topic, but I'm not releasing it at this point till like about a week in advance.
Tease.
Yeah. I have it written down, but I'm actually blanking on it right now. So there is something that we're going to be talking about. I can't remember right now, but I just want to thank you both for being on our show. And our next episode will actually feature, like I said, if you have story ideas, if you have questions or comments, things that we should be talking about on our show, definitely reach out to us at wordofmouth@thirdcity.co. And I want to thank our next episode is actually going to feature Jared Rustin and Emily Ostreicher, two very creative, highly creative people who support the community and have been working on Jared's a maker, and they'll be sharing more about their project to kind of give back to the city and kind of, show, rebuild their building that they've got. So we'll be talking about their project and, so I think we're going to wrap up a little bit early tonight, unless you both have anything else you want to share. So I want to just thank KXVS, the Voice of Stockton, our crew. If you want to donate and become a member and help keep community voices on the air, please go now to voiceofstockton.org and donate. And I want to thank my guests again.
Thank you.
Get in touch with them, learn more about their work, go like their page. And I want to thank our crew, Dustin Breakbill, our board operator, and our show music is by Polyrhythmics out of Portland. So that's all, folks. Have a good night. We'll see you in 2 weeks.